I'd like to begin by pointing out the hypocrisy of Waish coming in and saying there can be no one who can normatively describe whether or not you have a happy life, but then goes on to normatively describe everyone who doesn't follow his dream jobs as having an unhappy life. We told you from the very beginning of our speeches that happiness is arbitrary. It's very possible that you'd be sad or you'd be happy following your dream job. It's also very possible that you'd be sad or you'd be happy not following your dream job. We say it's very difficult for any one side of this debate to have a normative monopoly on how happiness comes about. We tell you they can't win this debate by saying that some people will be more emotionally happy just because they follow their dream job, especially when we see that the vast majority of people following their dream jobs do not succeed. What do we mean by that? That is to say, majority of people wanting to become football players are not Messis. They are Series 3 football players who never get spotlight in any media. We're talking about theater actors who can't go by with a living because they've got to search for the worst and the only kinds of jobs that are available to them. They've got to work 18 hours a day because they've got to get that living while pursuing their dream career. Now, what is more likely in these scenarios? Can they come and say that just because you followed your dream jobs and knowing the realistic nature of these scenarios where people are likely to be financially unstable, are you more likely to be happy or sad? We tell you it's much more likely that you could be sad given the nature of sadness in these cases. Because as Wasifa Apu explained, emotional sadness can to some extent be quenched by material desires and material fulfillment. But financial sadness, not knowing whether or not you're going to wake up in the morning tomorrow able to pay off the kind of drama school college debt that you earn, because you are unable to know if you're going to be able to pay rent for the next month. Can you fulfill these with emotional happiness simply because you followed your dream job? We tell you a leading cause of suicide in the modern society is this distress that comes from financial instability, and they can't just deny it using great terms such as paternalistic thinking and myopic vision. We also tell you that they come and say most societies have coping mechanisms for financial instability, that they have great welfare systems which make it impossible for you to actually suffer for following your dream job. We tell you, first of all, these contexts are out of this debate, simply because these people are not at risk of financial instability. They said that, no, we don't mean just those, we're talking about in general you have more ability to cope with this. We tell you, even in those instances, as we've shown you, it's much easier to deal with emotional sadness than it is to deal with financial sadness. He also comes in and says that niche jobs will become financially stable on the backs of these pioneers. That Dota 2 will only become financially stable once people start playing Dota 2 in Bangladesh. We tell you that in most circumstances, this is extremely narrow. That is to say, no matter how many people want to pursue football, it doesn't mean football as a career will become more financially solvent. Secondly, we tell you, are you simply going to sacrifice thousands upon thousands of pioneers for this future where it's going to be more accessible, which they cannot guarantee in the first place? We tell you that this is morally wrong for you to go and condemn these people to a life of sadness. Finally, we tell you that he said the reason after 40 years you want to change your job is because of family pressure and because we think that dream jobs are something that you should not pursue. We said no, the reason you're going to change after 40 years is because you have put your dream job on hold. That is to say, you know you can follow art, you know you can follow drama even after you're 50 years old. But it's much more rational to galvanize your financial stability by taking that course in medical and getting that doctor, becoming a doctor and becoming financially solvent, in which case you do have a backup. And that's why we feel like we've addressed most of the arguments that came from them. Now, moving on to how transient dream jobs are. In the course of the last year, I have gone from complete conviction that I want to be a doctor, to complete conviction that I want to become a lawyer, to complete conviction that I want to become economist. That's my current status right now, economist. However, recognize how transient this is. For you to expect families to support this, and the main reason why I tried to consider the other things was simply because my family was not fully supportive of every decision decision I made. In that scenarios, I'm much more likely to look into the pitfalls that can be present in my dream job. I'm more likely to recognize that going into medical would mean I'd have to sacrifice debate in many instances. It would mean that I've got to live a life of education for the next 7 years before I can even be employable. That's when I realized that's not where I'm going into. Because my family did not constantly embolden my irrational ideas. We tell you that under their world, once you have these irrational ideas, when you enter your dream job, that's when the reality check comes in. That's when Shabab realizes he can't do debate. Simply, he has to go out of his way and put so much effort, sometimes at the consequence of his grades. We recognize these things, and these reality checks are something we wish would have happened when my family did not force me to take these decisions by completely agreeing with me in everything. Yes.
Right. So engage with the fact that we've claimed the people making these predictions of what or will not be long-term financially secure aren't making accurate predictions because they're basing it on a world that no longer applies because they're not allowing to know the actual developments, for example, that we've come up and talked to you about.
Okay, so you're talking about the niche scenarios where a parent does not realize Dota 2 is a financially solvent environment and hamstrings your ability to become an expert Dota 2 player. We tell you just numerically the context in which they would succeed and the most context in which it's convenient for them are very narrow and very rare in the first place. We tell you parents are able to adapt to the changing environments around them. The continuous trend of recognition that there are other jobs besides lawyers, doctors, and engineers in Bangladesh is testament to that adaptability of their mindsets. So what have we shown you throughout this debate? We've shown you, and what they have not rebutted, is that it's irreversible. You can't move from a dream job to a financially solvent one, but you can move from a financially solvent position to a dream job. We've shown you third-party harm that they still have not been able to defend. We told you that your family will be hamstringed for life because your children cannot get the education that they dream of simply because you pursued art. We tell you your decision to hamstring and lose these third-party happiness simply on the chance of happiness, not to recognize the guarantee of happiness. It's very possible that you'd be an unhappy artist. Your chance of happiness, but you completely abandon your children forever. We tell you that these scenarios in which they would succeed are extremely narrow in the vast majority of cases. It is a much more principally stronger position to advise your child to look for a better job.